I
Hey,
hope we are
we've
live.
got one person here. We've got one intrepid trooper here joining us already. So I'm about to head into the thick of everything. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can kind of see what I've got in front of me.
My home screen is like all. Okay, yeah. So tell us where you're at and what's going on, dude.
All right. So I am in Nova Scotia and this possible megalithic site. I've been dropping content this week while I've been up here. And we've got that image of the dolmen, that wall. Um, and some interesting features and different stuff around the area. So I'm going to be taking us back up there. While we're headed up there, I'll be looking for. There's a couple other dolmens that I'll be trying to highlight, and then I'll turn the screen around here real quick too, because you'll see like there are these. I've talked to a bunch of people while I've been out here. And by the way, can you hear me all right? Is the audio okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm on my AirPods. So there's all these areas like the one that I'm pointing at right now, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of like this whole area is almost like I'm walking across these like mounds and laid out areas. I'm gonna go ahead and get on in here now and kind of take you guys on the journey. I'm gonna try to stay on these areas, but as you can see, there's like these areas where it's almost like trails, and then you get to other sections where it's all completely squared off, almost as if you're standing on top of structures. So as we made our way up here the other day, me and my buddy Crispin, who is on Twitter, he is at Twist Dead One, and one is the number one, Twist Dead One. We were walking all over the area, and thank God for him because he was actually able to get the exact grid coordinates. Um, when we were coming out here, and without that information, I had been planning this trip for months. I would have been in the completely wrong area, but so now I'm just going to be working my way up to this hillside to try to find that area. Oh no.
How far is it from the road? The hillside.
Um. Well, it's not even. Road is being kind. We're way out in the middle of nowhere, which is why I was so surprised that I was actually able to have a signal. But from where I was actually able to park, it's probably a football field. So I'm going to turn the camera here. There's just these little things, like as we're coming up, where it seems like there's sections that are like leveled and layered. So
And is that moss covered rocks?
yeah, I mean, there's so much, but as you can see right here, there's areas. I mean, it almost looks like steps.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These flat surface stones all over. All right, so I'm going to try to follow the path of least resistance up to this area. And there's a big, at some point up here, there's like this outcrop area of, it's like an open space. Excuse me. Freaking bugs everywhere. I'm hoping to avoid the the ticks a bit more this time around than last, because I was pulling ticks off me for hours. Luckily, I didn't get bit or have any get
What's that
attached to me.
stone right there that you're on?
So as I'm making my way up through here, there's lots of these types of outcroppings and stuff, and some of it's kind of hard to see, but they're like mounds. It makes it really difficult because of just how much brush is in the area. But as I work my way up, I'll try to show you some of these, like here, I can get over here and show you this. There's all kinds of interesting spots to be looking at, exploring throughout the area. Right. So this is a whole section right here that works its way straight up.
So is the honey hole, the honey pot, are we going to that dolmen? Or are you going to show us that like wall thing?
Yeah, so actually what's really cool is that they're both what's really cool is that they're very close to each other, right? So within just a few minutes, I'll be able to, once I get up there, I'll be able to show you the dolmen and the wall all right next to each other. And I think that is really one of the things that made it even more interesting was how close in proximity. It was almost as if they were all laid out to a certain degree, because like how close some of the main features of this area are together, right? So they're all right in the same spot. And if
Has
I'm
there
lucky,
been any kind of LiDAR or anything in this area? Obviously, probably not. But.
nothing. This whole area, until myself and Crispin came out here, was basically completely unexplored except for one gentleman. And he at that time was the only person who had taken pictures of the site area in this area period. He actually discovered the area. Now his website is paleoseti.com. Sorry, one second. That's PALEOSETI.com. And he those pictures were taken 10 years ago, 2013, I believe. And so those were the only known pictures of this area until we were able to find our way out here. And that was strictly because he actually gave us the coordinates. He gave Crispin. Crispin was in communication with them and got the coordinates. Now, let me turn this around. I'm in this outcropping. And so you'll find as we
That's cool.
walk up to these areas like this, there's going to be these open spaces where there are these large stones.
So Mysterious Mountain says, are there any small piles in the area?
Yeah, plenty of everything.
Stone piles.
Yeah. And so it's almost like I'm standing on some kind of platform up here, right? I mean, you can see the edges. And, again, it's really hard to tell because of just how overgrown everything is out here. So you're talking about probably feet and feet worth of debris, brush, dead trees, and stuff that you're walking through. And sorry, every once in a while I have to do like a tick check so I don't get all embedded in my clothes and stuff. But I'm walking.
They're that bad? That's gross.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. So I'm walking like on a whole other area that's like stone piles, right? And there seems to be whole areas of like when we explored Chaco Canyon and different places, the parts that were like less restored,
right?
But you could still make out the shape of the what there used to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So it's almost as if that's what I'm walking around and on up here, because there seems to be channels straight lines and all sorts of stuff.
Okay, so J117 asked, like, what's the elevation altitude there? Like, that's an
You
interesting
know,
question.
I wish I could tell you, but here's the interesting part. I don't know the exact elevation, but I do know this, that the area where the main dolmen feature that I was showing in the videos before
Mm-hmm.
and earlier this week, and where the wall is, all of that is on the highest point in the entire area. So from
Okay.
the highest point in the whole area, um, there are several dolmens. There is the wall, and I find that really interesting that that's the case for the area. So
So, any spring? Okay, so Mysterious Mountains ask, any spring heads near the feature? Is there any water source around this?
so there are plenty of lakes and streams in the area. There's nothing that I've seen right on like the hill here, but just down from how I came to get in here, there's a small like lake or pond or large pond, and um, so there's absolutely water sources in the area. So I'm getting closer, um, you know, and I apologize to everybody for not being able to release the locations, but one of the agreements that I made for getting the location to this site was to not release the location of the site. Now, I know that once an interest in a place like this gets, to a certain level, there's no kind of hiding something, after a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for now, um, they're wanting to keep the area. The gentleman that actually discovered this area is wanting to kind of keep it. He apparently did even a talk show 10 years ago, Mo, where he shared the site of one of these dolmens, and they were immediately vandalized and graffitied. And I think
Ugh.
you can look up that stone. It's called the Admiral Stone. And once that site was located, people just completely ruined it. It's covered in spray paint still to this day, and has been damaged and chipped. People are real
I saw that
freaking
on the paleo
idiots.
study, which was really bizarre. It's like, what a
Yeah.
weird to go do. Um, yeah. Okay. So we have a
So
couple of questions here. Are there any compass readings, like any weird erratic compass readings when you have you done that? Put that
I
on one.
haven't, but I have not, but I do have with me a compass. I brought one out this time, so when I get up here, I can kind of take some of those readings. Um,
Okay.
so I'm just trying to kind of find a way through some of this right now. I'm probably just gonna have to barrel my way through.
And then
Um,
Rosemary says, uh, I've seen maps where a guy showed a lot of alignments between standing stones there. Did you use maps like this to find the area to explore? No, he found it on or through this other guy, Paleo.
the original discoverer of the sites, and then he shared the grid, the GPS coordinates. Now I'm seeing something interesting here. I'm standing on this giant mound that's like encircled by these drop offs for these large boulders. So I'm standing on top of all these boulders, and I know it's hard to see, but you can see. I'm going to make my way over here, and you'll kind of see
Uh,
even better. So I'm going to, make my way down this ledge, and you'll see
Ooh, this looks like a wall right next to you.
exactly. You're going to see like kind of just how cool it gets out here, right? Because this is one straight, massive wall type thing that curves around in these big giant blocks, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
this is, and like I was saying earlier, this whole area seems to feel almost terraced, as if there's just, multiple layers. Now, I'll try and make my way up here. But then, it kind of ends in these right angles where it does end.
Super interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I think I'm getting close to the first area of the kind of less obvious.
This really
dolmen.
would be a good area to LiDAR.
So good. Because there's so much dense vegetation. So as I come up here, if this is the spot. Okay, cool. So I'll be getting us up to this spot here, which was kind of our base point yesterday. Right? And what we were able to identify as one of the first dolmen from, I'm just doing a tick check from the from the pictures online. This right here, and it's hard to see. Another thing that's happened since some of those pictures were taken is there's been a lot of damage from natural erosion and stuff to these. Like from the pictures 10 years ago, there's whole sections of stone and rock that are broken off.
Okay, definition of dolmen is it's balancing on some other rocks. Is this
that one? And this one is. But I really tried to get down there the other day and take a look, and it's just so overgrown. I can't really show you anything down there at the base. But I am extremely close now to that main dolmen feature, so we're almost there.
That's weird, that thing you're stepping on right now.
Yeah, this is a whole cleared area. Again, like that other spot I was just at, almost as if it's like this platformed area. And I think that this whole area is, sorry, y'all let me know if you see ticks. But this whole area, I think the reason why there's not trees growing in these spaces is because this is on one hole. Like this is all rock I'm standing on. I can catch my breath real quick. So now from this point, we're about, I don't know, 30, 40 yards away from the next dolmen. And that's the one that is extremely interesting. I feel like had the best features, so to speak. And then let me turn the camera around, because as we come up here,
someone asked, do you think it's been terraced?
It feels that way. It does. And it feels like there's whole areas that are like almost in like grid type layouts.
Someone asked, is it a pyramid? Is it that much height? How much height do you think there is? Like from, I don't know, the base level where you had the car?
Man, that's a good question.
Because it's gradual height.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing if this whole thing was a pyramid. I think it would probably be more, just from my feeling of walking the site several times now, I think it'd be more akin to like just this terraced area, because there's whole grids to the area. Hopefully I showed that a little bit down below. There'll be some other spots where I can show that even better. I think it less likely would be a pyramid and more likely be lots of different structures built on this whole area, right? So right behind me, I came from that spot where I just showed that other dolmen in that whole clearing area. And then right in front of me Um, there is an interesting area right here where there's these um, three different rocks that are balanced on these smaller rocks, right? Um, so we
I
got
can't
one
tell that they're
here.
balanced.
Well, they're sitting on
Oh
these other
yeah,
kind of,
okay, I can kind of see that.
right, with like these void spaces. Now that one's, everything is so debris, like so much debris around the bottom of that one. That one's really hard to tell, but there's another one there, right? So there's these three right next to each other, which when Crispin and I were walking here the first day, we found that really interesting. Um, but you can see that there's like these kind of ledges and these spaces where things kind of go in these straight lines. And you know, hopefully I'm showing that well. It is a little bit, it is a little bit harder to to show, but I'm like standing on these ledges. So
Any feel
just to
for what the kind of stone is? Like, is it just like a kind of granite or any kind of? Do you see any quartz or any? Like, I don't know how much is like how big is the granulation between it?
it it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it looks like granite, but it also almost like there's whole areas that look like worn down concrete that
Like it's
have
mixed really fine.
yeah, and they're breaking apart and crumbling due to age and weathering. So there's whole areas like that, and so just 30 or 30 or 40 feet. So I don't know if you can still see, but those stones I was just showing are right here,
Okay, yeah.
and then right here is another one. I'll turn the camera and walk up to it. Right, and this guy sits on this ledge.
That's it. That's kind of a far way down.
Yeah, and there's a slope over here, so I can actually walk closer to it. So if anybody that's followed a lot of my work lately over the last year, obviously I travel all over the world and go to all these different sites, but I've been kind of focusing in on stuff in America, and I think, you know, one thing that's kind of stood out to me is that these places in America, if these are ancient sites, they're so extremely worn down and weathered. There's a different, we're dealing with a whole different type of like age, right? There's a whole nother level of natural erosion and weathering. So I think it's very possible that we're dealing with sites that are man-made or have man-made influence that are also so incredibly old that they've been weathered down and have an extreme amount of natural erosion. So I mean,
That,
you know,
or they've
this,
had like a nuclear bomb, or they've had
yeah,
some kind of giant solar flash, or they've had some kind of something has like messed them up.
some level of destruction or weathering or um,
Yeah, I
you
mean that's
know,
like the moss and the lichen that's growing right there is has to be hundreds of years old to be able to get to. I mean, like lichen is like I don't know. Apparently, or some of it is really slow growing over time. But then I don't know. You'll have somebody like Dan Stevens who'll say, "No, just put some yogurt on some rocks, and it'll look like that in 2 weeks." So I'm
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you could come out into the middle of nowhere and put yogurt on rocks and see what happens, but I don't think that's what's happening here. Um,
so,
I don't, I don't think anybody, you know, I'm never, I'm never one to just outright dismiss all ideas, but I don't think anybody's coming out here putting yogurt on rocks. Um, and I know he's, you know, being funny, but um, so it is. This is quite a hike. We are really close to the next dolmen, and that is the main feature that I know I was the most excited about. I know everybody that's tuned in is probably super excited to see. So I hope you guys can bear with me because I'm just making my way over to it. It is extremely dense vegetation out here. But I'm going to turn the camera because we're going to go through some rock piles here in a second. And I want you guys to just be able to see that. So, and I do also want you guys to keep in mind that everything that I'm walking on are like piles of rocks, right? Also, and a lot of areas they're laid out in, like I was talking about earlier, in these types of grid patterns, and it's hard to see, but that's a straight line with the drop off on the rock. This thing is like a square, and it's kind of hard to make out on the camera doing a live
Yeah, I
stream, but
know. And as soon as you put your fingers up there, it goes blurry and it focuses in on your
yeah.
fingers. Yeah.
So, I'm trying my best here to show you guys, um, but this is what I'm talking about when I say it feels like I'm walking over collapsed ruins. Now,
Yeah.
again, I'm not saying anything definitive one way or the other, but I do find it very interesting when I visit these sites and you have things like stuff that clearly looks like dolmens, or you have things that like straight walls, um, or you have things that look like carved spaces and ledges and lips on things, right? Or grind holes, um, you know. So that starts to get really interesting. Like this right here, this whole thing right here is just the straight line of rock. It's like this gridded off area. So and again, it's hard to show you guys everything, but that's why I'm excited to get up here to the dolmen, because you guys will really appreciate that. That one is really cool to see. I just have to make my way
Where
through
was
all
the
this.
wall that was very like in your picture that you sent that was very like very geometry?
Yeah, so that's right up here by the dolmen. So I'll be getting to that here in just a second. Okay, I think I found it. All right, so we're about, I don't know, 20, 30 feet away. But, we walked around out here for about 5 hours finding stuff the other day. And there are some good reference points, what makes it a lot easier. So just pay attention as we walk through this area, because we're coming up on that dolmen right now. And that might kind of give the space a little bit of context, right? So, yeah, here we go.
Oh, there we go. Oh.
So look at that.
So interesting how it's like such a little square rock, like one of the
Right?
balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm seeing comments now. Yeah, it would absolutely be probably a lot better to come out here in winter when
Mm-hmm.
things are kind of died off and stuff. But then you also have, more debris on the ground. So it's kind of, that was one thing that I found to be kind of unfortunate. I did put the drone up the other day when I was out here, and you just can't see anything. It's pointless.
No.
I could get no mark or sense of the area. But this is really interesting, this piece here, how it's so square. And Nikki, you were asking me a minute ago about the composition of the rock. I mean, look at that. It looks like concrete, right?
Yeah, it does look like concrete actually. Tyler says, "Can you go to Oak Island next?" But I actually wonder how far are you from Oak
I
Island?
I am not. I'm actually not far from Oak Island, and there was a spot down there, a little known spot, that apparently there's a cave with some secrets inside the cave, and this trip just hasn't fully worked out in a lot of the ways that I wanted. The last 2 days it's been raining. It's raining today. There were some things. The other thing is like out here in Nova Scotia, especially around Halifax, it's not just that it's raining. There's so much fog that you can't really, like, if I was flying the drone trying to get footage, it just would be pointless because you can't see anything. That's how thick the fog is, and it can just sit.
And you saw a bear.
Yeah, the first day. I have this. I have. just because I was coming out alone this time, Crispin couldn't join me. I had to go buy this because he had bear spray with him. I had to go buy this guy because the first day that I came out here, the first thing I saw was this giant, massive black bear. The thing was humongous, and I was like, "Oh shit! It's gonna be that kind of party." All right. Um, and then between the bear, the ticks, and the mosquitoes out here, it's this is
Right.
quite a bit.
Super
This is
hospitable.
very this has been very comparable to some of the more out there adventures that I've done around the world, like down in Bolivia or into the Andes Mountains and different stuff. It has its own set of um, unique challenges. But let me turn the camera around and I'll give a walk around of the this dolmen here for you.
He's
So
okay.
you can
Tyler
kind of
says, "Do you have any equipment to test the conductivity?" Okay, like that's the thing is like when we were in
so there's
Belize, we
the
were testing the conductivity of the rock, which is we gotta talk about that at some point for real because that's the thing we should start adding to our investigation toolbox when we're looking around at places because it, like we tested like to see whether it was conductive or not. We tested like some or Belizean um what do you call it, like pyramid stuff, and if it was actually a stone that was part of the structure and you could tell it was super conductive, and if it was just a gravel piece of rock that they used on the pathway, no, it wasn't conductive at all. So I think that
huh.
there might be something to that. Jared Murphy was the first person to uh, want to test that idea, but it actually works. So we got to. That's why I was looking into those, like the analog conductivity machines.
Well, I should be much more involved in doing stuff like that, and I just always, um, it feels like definitely when I look back on stuff that I'm kind of dropping the ball by not bringing some of these things. But with some of the stuff that I'm doing, I have to be pretty selective about the amount of gear that I'm bringing. Um, so sometimes it's like I have this compass. I went and bought this compass, and I guess I could get some readings, but um,
I think only place I've actually ever known for there to be like the little do 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 do
yeah,
is
spinning around.
yeah, the Puma Punku, right? Those H stones,
Right.
H block
Mm-hmm.
stones. That's the only thing I know of that does that.
No, we that was interesting. We were able to fly directly. Like when we went there to Pumapunku, we got access to the site. It was closed down. We got access to it. No one was around. They let us fly the drones directly over that site. And we were about to start doing 360 VR over it, but it started raining, unfortunately. And so we didn't get to do some of those things that we wanted, but we did get footage that I don't know if anybody else has in the world on that one. That was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, so far the compass is behaving normally out here. Um, and I hope that you guys were able to see as I was showing you the rock. It is balanced on 3 points. You've got a point right there where one of the stones it's resting on is broken, and then there's a
Okay, so this is the
there,
other side of it.
uh-huh, and then at the front there's one. Um, let me see.
Okay.
There's one there, and again, and then there's the square one. Now the again, each one of these is on some kind of platform. So, call it a platform or a rock outcropping if you want, whatever. But they all rest in these spaces that are clear rock platforms where trees aren't growing. Now there's trees all around this, but they're growing off the side of this platform, whatever it's on that's resting on. And each other one of these dolmens that I've showed, they all exist in the same type of space. They're all on these platforms like that, um, which I found to be extremely interesting for the area. They're not just these scattered boulders. Um, they sit on these platforms or rock outcroppings.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I were a conventional archaeologist, I would be, or sorry, a conventional geologist, I would say, oh, no, that's from glacial melt, moving of glacial ice melts.
Yes. Um, yeah. Uh, that is always the explanation, right? I get a million of those, kind of a million, but I get quite a few of those comments in my on my videos. It's yeah, glacier erratic, glacier erratic, glacier erratic. Cool, man. Love how they just stack things so perfectly on 3 points, and you know, like to stack walls and stuff too, like at Sage Wall. Um, so from here, I'm really close to the actual wall that I just mentioned. So I'll walk you guys over here. We'll go to check that out next, because that one has some really cool features.
So
Besides just
Prince
the little,
Solomon says, "Do you have you consulted any of the First Nation tribes in the area about accounts of ancient past that might shed new light on these rocks in this area?" Like, I do kind of wonder, like, what they say it
yeah.
is.
Um, so the short answer to that is no. Um, I tend to want to, when I decide to go to a site like this, or even like a really well known site, I prefer going with um, kind of as much of a blank slate as possible, so I can see things with fresh eyes, and kind of backfill from there with information. Um, because what I found is that tends to kind of um, hey, Nikki, there's Nikki in the comments. Um, what happens is if you have this whole idea and this understanding of like what a space is before you go there, it kind of clouds your judgment in terms of that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those things, right? When I show up to a site that I know, I don't have the whole backstory on, I'm kind of looking for, instead of the history of the site and things like that, again, not to discount any of that, but I find that I'm less affected in terms of what I'm looking for things like that, and more looking for known features that are around the world, things that we really dig into, like you and I, Nikki, like nubs, different types of features on these stones that are universal, right? Um, and so, um, generally, that's the way I prefer to do it. Um, the footage will exist afterwards. You'll get my opinion, but the footage exists afterwards. I feel like, to either back up or um, present other questions. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
Um,
interesting. Zeno says, "I'm sure the uh, what's it called? Ah, I can't say that word. Mick. I don't know. I can't say it. It's a Mi'kmaq. Oh yeah, the Mi'kmaq have a story. Who David Sinbar Long Pass is a Mi'kmaq guy from Nova Scotia. So I could always, like, I guess, email him and ask him if they're. I mean, some of their
yeah,
stories are cool. It's like,
McMac.
oh, some like grandfather eagle went up and then did. I don't know. They have theirs isn't as traditional as whatever main stuff.
Yeah, and again, like it's from a filming perspective. My whole goal, when I travel, is basically to document. I want people to ask their own questions. My goal is to kind of generate a conversation around things where things may have stopped having a conversation, just because you know people have been saying something like glacier erratic, glacier erratic, glacier erratic for 50 years, and people are just like, oh, it's a glacier erratic, so people just stop asking
Yeah,
questions.
I know,
To
like
me,
that.
that's not science.
Even if you want to talk about glacier erratic, that doesn't explain anything. It's just the word. Um,
Right, and I think it's important for people to keep asking questions. I don't understand where so many people feel threatened by people asking questions. If you feel like that's the answer and you know that then what do you care? Move on. Go
right.
to a different YouTube channel. Right? But documenting and sharing these different things so people with new, fresh eyes can look at stuff and possibly, posit questions that haven't been considered before, I think is an important, not just not just important for a site specifically, but I think it's important for people individually, right? At a social level, it's important for us to be asking questions all the time, and that's where it's just as important on an individual level as it is for developing any kind of understanding of ancient sites around the world. I've got ticks now, so
Oh, wonderful.
see
Hey,
that
and
guy?
well put. No, I don't see it,
You did.
but
You did.
I trust that it's there.
Yeah, they're trying to get in my. They're trying to get in my pants and my waist.
They're after you.
They're after me. So we're at the wall now. I'm going to turn the camera around.
Okay. Ooh, this is the juicy part.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is this whole area. I'll walk it a bit more in a minute because I was so focused on this wall spot that I didn't check out some of these areas the other day. But as you can see right here, there's this straight line that squares off the area, and there's the wall, right? So I'm going to
Ooh.
walk you in. I'm going to walk
Okay.
you in down this wall. But first, check my neck because I felt something on my neck, and this is this is driving me. The ticks will drive you crazy out here. It's like
Yeah.
everything for days. I felt like something was crawling on me for days. So this whole thing right here, and yeah, Nikki. This is like a from here, and it goes straight down.
Okay.
And sorry for having my hand in the way and blurring, but it rounds off. I know there's a lot of debris, but it squares off right here and goes here. And then on the other side, it goes down. So this whole thing is an outcropping, like a square rectangular outcropping. Um, Yeah, Rosemary, that was a great point. I just happened to catch that comment. And that's the main thing for me about asking questions as people, why it's so important to be asking questions. When people start asking you to stop asking questions because something's already been explained, it just shows to
Yeah.
me that they're locked into a certain frame of thinking. And I think it's important for us as people to get out of that. So don't be afraid of being wrong just because you're asking questions that someone else has explored before, right? Because getting into the habit of asking questions, I think, keeps you from participating in dumb social shit, right? I mean,
Right.
we just went through a couple years of people participating in an absolute huge
So,
array of dumb social shit, right? So, when you're asking questions, you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. What about this? All right, so back to the site. It's like I'm on this like outcropping here, and it's this rectangular. It sucks because I can't show you, but hopefully you can see that there's this whole line here that I'm standing on. And then on the other side as well. So it's almost like this is a wall. Um, and then as we get around over here, this is where we get up close to the actual wall, right? And then it starts to square off into
ooh.
this. And then what's really interesting is that right at the base of all this, you have this perfectly rectangled stone. And what's even more interesting is that right next to that is that one with
Yeah, that's the stone. I'm like, what? With the
the
ridge and
lip. Yeah, right.
wait, is that
So
like the stone like a little carved groove, or is that
yeah,
like what's
yeah,
kind of what it looks like?
yeah, it goes in,
What's the other
right?
side of that stone look like?
The what?
Like what's the back? Yeah, right there.
It's flat,
That would be a great little mini throne.
right? And then right there. Now the interesting thing is that this picture from 10 years ago, this is
Uh-huh.
broke. I think that this piece is split. I believe if I'm correct. Oh, sorry, these fucking things. Um, that this wasn't split 10 years ago. So there's an incredible amount of erosion. you can see the trees are growing right straight through certain areas, right? This one
Right.
right here, its root system goes right in between these cracks, and so that's going to be splitting that whole section here as time goes on. It has several roots growing into these spaces, and you can see other places where it looks like that used to be standing upright, which is really interesting, and then is now fallen over and is leaning towards me. But you can clearly see how that used to be standing upright in alignment with this other like squared off section, which I found to be really interesting. Now, I'll come back to this spot, but I did want to walk you guys over here to a couple other, there's another spot right over here that I wanted to check out to kind of give you an understanding of like when I'm talking about gridded off areas, what I'm talking about. And the other interesting thing is that this area that I'm standing in right now is much more clear. Everything that I've been through thus far um, is much more cleared off in this area. So it's just like it's like debris. It's like debris, just like dead leaves. But look how open it is compared to everything else that I've been through. Right? Um, Jesus. Sorry.
Yeah. Have fun in your bathtub tonight.
Oh my God, dude. So so this whole area in space, right? The wall's just right there. And then this whole area is like flat, except all around it, like where the wall is, and in
Hmm.
this whole squared off area are these, it's again, it's hard to tell because some of the debris is so high, but there's this other rock section.
Okay, so it's almost like you're within a courtyard or something.
Exactly. And this comes down over here. You've got all these, they all run in these straight lines, right? And then end up hitting spaces. Let me get over here and show you. Hitting spaces where they square off, right? So uh here, this goes to here, and then it squares off and comes this way. And then if I work my way over here and I keep following these lines, it's almost like this is a whole platformed area or raised area. And
Hmm.
then let me do it this way. So that's like this squared off area that comes down this way. And this whole top is like rocks, and then it's open. And then you get over here, and this is continuing on from over there where the wall was. There's like a whole other area of like overgrown rocks that interestingly also behave in some square, um, like their layout, right? So they're rounded and I think extremely weathered, but they're like laid out in spaces, like grids.
Right.
So so that if you were to ask me like what do I feel like, I'm not saying anything scientific or anything, but just from walking over the area, comparing it mentally to places that I've been around the world and stuff like that, it feels like I'm standing on some kind of like collapsed ancient ruin. Wishful thinking, maybe, but
Right.
that certainly
And
is
like a big,
interesting.
like, are we talking like a Saxon woman, like a bigger expansive ruin, or just as a small little, like, what are you?
I think so because the whole area exists in these kind of grid formats across this whole hillside. So, you know, as most of the sites in Peru, um, I know you've been there. They all
Mhm.
kind of exist on these hills and these varying levels, right? Um, and I kind of feel like that's what we have here, right? We have areas that are like these huge flattened spaces that perhaps were terraformed or like flattened and built on. And then you move off that, and you might go down like a little hillside and get to another space. Um, where it feels like you're standing on kind of these gridded areas, and then so on and so on, right? So if I'm showing you this whole area, I'm kind of in this. If this was an area, it would feel very much like I'm in this open courtyard area and surrounded by these sectioned. Again, it's hard for me to show you, but there's these sectioned off areas of stone that go around, come back to here, follow this wall, which is what this is, and then over to that main wall that's squared off and runs down that way.
The main wall is really cool.
So I'll walk back up here and show you. I find it really interesting when you start finding, you know, I can explain away a rectangle stone like that,
Hmm.
but it definitely piques my curiosity quite a bit more when it's right next to a stone like this.
Right, which is right next
And
to a pretty wall look
mhm,
wall.
and then when I take both of these into account and I look straight up at something like this, right?
Yeah.
And in a squared off gridded area. So, yeah, you know, we I know that you do and we do. We get it all the time, wishful thinking. You guys see stuff and everything, but it's really not that so much as what usually makes up my mind as something being worth taking a bigger look at is when you combine a bunch of different things and features together.
Right.
Like the sage wall in and of itself, I think, for example, could be explained away in a lot of different ways. And certainly people have done that. But when I started exploring the area and seeing all the cup holes, the cut marks into the stones, um, and all those different features, the stuff that I've highlighted in those videos, that to me is what really brings it all together, to make me say, okay, maybe this should be looked at a bit more. And we've talked about it before. I think it's really interesting that there's so many of these megalithic structures around the world, but none in North America. Um,
Right. The fact that North America is just like this dead zone that
yeah,
like and so what
yeah,
they found South America and did some awesome stuff and then North America no.
right. So we're just every continent on the planet except for this one. Um, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. And also, people don't tend to think of it this way, but America has the most hidden and propagandized history of almost any country on the planet. I mean, we had a whole fake narrative history written to justify, um, the colonization over here
Mhm.
of North America, as if it wasn't inhabited already with cities and cultures all over it. Our history
Yeah,
acts as if like it was just like these nomadic people that just didn't have any kind of society or anything, which is not true. There were whole cities and stuff that existed here.
well, and it's like, like we went to Chaco, but then I also went to this other one called Grand Cuervo, like 2 weekends ago. And if I were to just show you images or a walkthrough of some of that and told you it was like a Scottish castle that was really, really, eroded, like you'd believe me. It was made out of rock. It was like
Hmm.
just one of those things where you're going, wait, what was really going on here? And mounds are weird. The fact that they
Yeah,
build like mountains, they build dirt mountains. That's weird.
yeah, yeah. It's I've been saying this for the past year, and I do genuinely believe this, and it's why I've shifted a lot of my focus on the channel over to sites in America. I'm still traveling internationally. Like I'm doing a trip in just a few months to Easter Island. I know you have plans for that as well. Um, and so I'm still traveling internationally and going to sites all around the world. But I started really focusing on North America, and I really feel like, you know, if you're in this community and you're not focusing on North America right now and some of the discoveries that are being made around the country, whether they pan out or they don't, I think in a couple years you're going to be left behind because I think that there's going to be some major discoveries and things happening in North America over the coming years that I think are going to be groundbreaking. And that's just my feeling. But I think that if, dude, that guy was trying to get me. Little fucker.
Well, I think if we all kind of together on like really uncovering a lot of the and combining it together, because like you hear a lot of isolated stories, like you'll hear like, oh, there's the stone wall, or there's the rock wall Texas, or there's sage wall, or you have, oh, there's the whole story of the mounds, this or that. You hear like about one site, one off, but when you start really putting it all
Right.
together, and I mean, and it
Yep.
goes beyond just America before with Graham Hancock. I mean, you can get way deeper than that. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing with the rock wall in Texas, it's like, you know, I don't know who the guy was that went out there and did that, and then he
That's
just proclaimed that it was.
Scott Walter
Sorry,
guy, and he
dude.
was, oh, it's,
You know what?
yeah,
I've I actually was able to meet him like a month ago or so at one of his conferences, and I'm sorry, man. If you're just saying that a natural that there's a natural formation in straight right angles all the way around this whole giant section of this area. Like, sorry, man. It doesn't work for me. That's not the end of the conversation for me. It's just,
yeah,
um, and it. I need to get up there. It's really unfortunate that they had that whole area excavated, and then somebody came in and said nope, and then they just buried it again. It's like, okay,
yeah.
so we just get one opinion in
They
conversation
still have
over.
some of the at the courthouse and in Rockwall, because you got to come up and stay with me sometime, you and Nikki, and we can go check out that area, because it's
I'd
only
love
like,
to. Yeah,
it's in my metroplex or whatever. But like, when you go to the courthouse area of Rockwall, they have parts of the rock wall, and they're just big stone bricks sitting out there that you can look at. I mean, but so the Scott Walter deemed it on his show natural, because the iron filings were pointing the same way in the in a couple of samplings. It was like, what? That doesn't even make
yeah,
sense. And even
doesn't
if
work
they
for me.
were pointed this way, that wouldn't disprove it. It's just insane.
Yeah, doesn't work for me. Let me show you. I'm still over here by the wall, but I've got thunder and some lightning that I'm
Yeah.
hearing off in
And
the
we're
distance.
at
So I'm
an hour
probably gonna
almost.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me point this back here at this whole space, and I'll walk you around this area again. Now this is that outcropping. So it's about 3 to 4 feet wide, and it's basically like this wall, and it's hard to tell, but that log is basically the end of it, and it's a drop off on the other side that runs just like this. So you've got
Hmm.
this and this whole like wall type outcropping, right? And then that works its way here to this squared off area where the wall is. And then right below it is this rectangle block that's the same size on all um, top to bottom, whatever. It's a rectangle, and then you have the other block with that stump, that lip, right? Which I find to be extremely interesting. And then this goes down, and all of this exists within this squared off space.
Crazy.
So
And
very cool
this is like
site.
one of many little places in Nova Scotia, right? Like this is
Hmm.
not even,
Yeah,
there's some
there's
that you
quite
can't
a
even
bit of
get,
dolmens, and
right?
then you have the history around Oak Island. You have verified accounts of Knights Templars coming over here, Vikings, um, you know, all sorts of different stuff. Um, and Nova Scotia kind of being an area that's had a lot of different types of influence um, through through the through the years. So it makes sense that there would be stuff out here um, to find. But and then again, I think it falls within stuff that we've been talking about, different things being found in North America being extremely old. The so um, there's you kind of have to look at it if it's possibly man-made influence in these different areas, just like some of the places in Montana, and some other areas. Well, you have a combination of man-made influence, but natural erosion and weathering, that possibly thousands of years of natural erosion and weathering working on these locations. So that you know I mean, I've already showed here just in 10 years time that this rock here is split from 10 years ago. And at the time those were the only known pictures, but that used to be one whole piece, if I'm remembering correct from the pictures. So, it doesn't take an extreme amount of time for erosion and natural processes to have the effect on things to make them almost indistinguishable from natural surroundings. Um, if they weren't
Good point.
buried, like a lot of different things around the world have been, seem to have been buried and preserved almost. Well, if some of these sites here in North America, weren't buried in the same way and they've been exposed to the elements for thousands of years and had trees growing through the cracks and stuff, yeah, they're going to be broken and have natural weathering processes and cracks and splits. Um, Again, just this kind of working theory for the possibility of megalithic sites in North America. And I think it's something that's a lot of fun to explore. Definitely has a feel to the area of, and it's, I wish I could show it to you guys better. Um, if maybe coming back sometime in the winter where I could get the drone up and you could actually see the ground from above, you might get an idea of what I'm talking about with these gridded off areas and these sections that look like they have design. But yeah, I think I'm gonna probably have to end it there because I think I'm about to get hit with this storm that's coming my way.
All right. Well,
And I,
get your
I
bear
definitely
spray
have to
out and
be able to get
take
off the road. Yeah.
spray. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well,
Okay,
it's
Mike.
been a
It was
good
really
live
fun.
stream, and I'll make sure to share some pics and stuff with you.
Okay, cool. And we were looking forward to at some point he's gonna have like with his better camera than his iPhone. He's gonna have a video with all this like more up close and personal
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have that video done, and I'll probably be releasing it in probably a couple days. It's available right now to channel members. I think I have member plans as low as $1.99 a month, and that's the big thing that I'm able to do to kind of incentivize that. If you want to support the channel, is releasing content early. So I've just been releasing content early. That one video that I've already made out on this site has been out for like 4 or 5 days or 3 days, and it's available right now to channel members. And I'll be pushing that live for everybody here in just a
Oh
couple
yeah.
days.
And I gotta go become a channel member now because like I'm already a Patreon member. Now I'm like, I'm gonna get my benefit. So I'm
There
gonna
you
go.
go. Yeah, move it over.
I'm moving over. I'm
There you
moving over to
go.
yeah. So okay, I love what you're doing, Mike. Keep up the good work and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. I don't know how to end this.